Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Scotland at 7. I'm Gordon Ross, and on today's programme, my special guest is Chris McCusker, who is the Vice Convener of the Socialist Group of the SNP. So welcome again, Chris, to the studio.
Thanks very much for inviting me in, Gordon.
We have, as usual, a very full schedule of news to discuss today, and I think the first on the list really is Boris Johnson again, isn't it? It's always about Boris Johnson these days. The first story that we really have here is that the MPs have voted against a motion for a mini recess for the Tory party conference this coming week. So just at the moment when they really all need to be paying attention and actually working in the Houses of Parliament, they've decided to take a few days off.
Yeah. But again, they would wish to do this to further stymie any progress in the Brexit.
So you think this is just another stalling tactic?
Oh, of course it is. And this won't be his brainchild. This will be Cummings' brainchild.
Well, the MPs have voted against this at least. So. It's at least shows that some of the MPs take their jobs seriously, even if the Conservative Party seems to be wanting to take more time off and to waste more time in the lead up to. So having voted against this mini recess, basically another loss for Boris Johnson, another motion that he seems to have lost. It's now his seventh vote he has lost since becoming Prime Minister. That must be some kind of record, surely.
Either that or he must have broke a mirror as he moved into number 10.
7 defeats in a row. Yeah, this seems to be a magic number. Anyway, Boris has suffered this new defeat when the MPs voted against the motion for a mini recess, and they voted, the vote was lost, 306 votes to 289. A reasonable majority, actually, to not allow the Tories to waste more time.
Again, you've got to look at the fact that he has lost as a minority government now. Do you know what I mean? He has
minus 45 MPs.
Kicked out 45 MPs. As he seems to rule the roost with an iron rod, and anybody that gives him any back chat, they're just out on their baruki.
Very Trumpian, I would say.
Of course it is. But I mean, he was over in America. He's had plenty of time to, for Trump to sit him down in the classroom and teach him
the
playbook. Yeah, of course.
He'll be tweeting government policy next, I would assume then. Anyway, the Conservative Party have insisted that they will not cancel their conference, despite the fact that they're not getting this holiday. Political parties make a huge amount of money from their party conferences because members and lobbyists have to pay to attend, and I would imagine if it's the Conservative Party, they pay more than many other party members would. So the timetable may have to be rearranged. Boris was due to speak around lunchtime on Wednesday. He'll now be due in the Commons at that point for PMQs, and so his speech is likely to be moved at conference because you can't be in two places at once.
One time. I thought the Hulk could do that.
The Hulk,
when he was morphing into his green thing, and
I doubt even the Hulk could manage to be in two places at the one time. However, for him to boycott the Commons and send Dominic Raab or somebody like that in his place as PMQ stand-in would be grossly disrespectful to Parliament. He's already been late to arrive. He's left early in a fairly unmannerly way, as far as I understand.
Didn't even hang about last night for a point of order, which was tabled by John McDonnell. And even at the Speaker's request, John Bercow had asked him, you might want to stay and hear this. And he, at one point, we thought that it was, and then he decided, nah, bugger it, I'm just going to go.
So he just sort of waved that aside?
Just walked out.
It just seems to be the characteristic. Yeah. Anything he doesn't want to take part in is a malarkey that you can't be bothered with.
Yeah, correct.
Well as this particular piece of apparent rudeness, Boris is in trouble also for his language.
That's no surprise.
No, not for swearing, obviously, because nobody's allowed to do that in parliamentary.
He might as well have done.
But he's been accused of using language which is causing, shall we say, some more far-right supporters of Brexit to begin harassing women MPs and sending death threats, apparently. We have one MP whose name is Jess Phillips, I believe, has had a death threat, not just on her phone, not just a text message, but an actual letter delivered to her constituency office. Saying that, basically traitors will be found dead in a ditch, I think was the words, or something along those lines.
Yeah, which Boris actually has famously said that
dead in a ditch was one of his phrases, wasn't it?
And the knuckle dragging Neanderthals of the Brexit right wing, they will take that up.
So Boris is making the bullets, and these guys are firing them. Really,
absolutely, no doubt. And again, it is not Boris. It is Cummings.
You believe
Cummings is directing this?
You think he's orchestrating what Boris is saying, and is he actually? Do you think he's actually telling Boris which precise words to use to cause a maximum impact? Do you think?
No, well,
they're carefully chosen.
They are carefully chosen,
sure
and I wouldn't rule it out, Gordon. But again, earlier on you alluded to the fact that it's just right out of the Trump playbook. And that is the model that Boris is definitely following at this moment in time.
There are also rumours, and they are just rumours, that Dominic Cummings is not just he's not masterminding this. That there are other people backing Cummings, and Cummings is the man who's basically the handler for Boris Johnson.
Yeah.
Johnson's the man. He's the placeman. He's the man on the spot.
Yeah.
Who's pushing through for this no-deal Brexit.
Yeah.
Cummings is basically the spin doctor who's helping him to deliver the script.
Without no doubt. I mean, I've seen. I posted it up on my Twitter feed that the Daily Mail had described the judge who delivered the verdict of unlawful prorogation.
Yes.
They actually described her not as an eminent QC, not as someone who is qualified at the bar, but as an ex-barmaid. This
is Lady Hale.
Yes, Lady Hale. Yeah.
I think was it Brenda Hale, her full name? I can't remember, but yes,
Lady Hale, I know. But the Daily Mail actually put it out that she is an ex-barmaid.
Yes,
how degrading is that? Yeah. I mean, it's not a degrading job. I've worked in bars all my life, but you cannot describe someone who is an eminent QC.
With such disrespect.
So they are also using the right wing media to target these right wing fascist thugs that are now embroiled in the whole Brexit, leave and take
basically trying
back control,
intimidate any Remain MPs, particularly the female ones who are far more vulnerable to this kind of intimidation. Now, talking of this intimidation, but there is news actually just come out today that a man has been arrested outside the office of the Labour MP Jess Phillips, according to the reports. He's been arrested on suspicion of a public order offence following an incident outside the constituency office of Jess Phillips, which the suspect is reported to have banged on the windows and shouted fascist.
Yeah.
I mean, it beggars belief that somebody who is clearly the fascist here is the one accusing an MP, a Labour MP, of being a fascist simply because she opposes a policy.
Yeah. But it's also strikingly bizarre as the fact that these so-called fascists don't actually know what a fascist is.
No, it's just a word to them.
Do you know what I mean? It's just it's just a descriptor.
Yep.
Yeah, an uneducated descriptor. If they were to actually meet anybody from the right-wing neo-Nazi fraternity in Germany, they would probably they would probably void their bowels, let's put it that way.
Chris, it's a bit early in the evening for that. But okay, I get your point. Okay, one of the things about this business of the actual fascists themselves calling other people fascist appears to be a trope in particular conservative politics, that they always accuse their opposite number of the very thing that they're doing themselves.
Well,
and there have been other incidents which we could probably talk at length about, but that this is definitely something that happens on a regular basis. The Tories are very famous for accusing other people of doing the same thing.
Yeah,
that they're up to.
Narrative that the Tories are using is, overtly in your face stuff. Do you know what I mean?
They're trying to appeal to the working class Brexit voter, the ones who felt disenfranchised, the ones who felt bitter at being ignored and their towns being dilapidated and having no work.
Yeah. I mean, these are the people that wanted to leave Europe to so that they can take back control and be in control of the laws that they are, currently bereft of. And then if you ask them which laws that they're looking forward to getting back, they can't tell you what,
because they're basically parroting
a soundbite.
Now, Miss Phillips, this is the MP whose constituency was affected today, said, she's appeared on LBC radio, and she said that her staff had to be locked in the office while this man tried to smash the windows. I mean, it was that brazen. He wasn't, trying to hide what he was or who he was.
No.
Basically, just walking up. That kind of shows you how empowering this kind of language is to people like that. And this is precisely what various female MPs were standing up yesterday and saying, that this is unacceptable. And Boris just waved them aside. And said it was a load of humbug. Now, as I was saying to somebody today, who uses the word humbug in this day and age? This is Charles Dickens' word.
Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Yeah, maybe Jacob Rees-Mogg. Anyway, this incident happened almost immediately after Miss Phillips tabled an urgent question to the Commons on the subject of inflammatory language.
Yeah.
The very day she does this, her office is targeted in this way.
Yeah.
Somebody's behind this. Surely.
It definitely is, and how the establishment move behind the smoke and mirrors of Whitehall. You and I will never be privy to. Do you know what I mean? You can cite various incidences of. You only have to look at the. You only have to look at the death of Willie McRae.
Indeed.
Do you know what I mean? Where it was just about to lift the whole lid on the complete dossier of paedophilia within inside Westminster halls, and hey, all of a sudden he commits suicide with the gun is 60 yards away from his body, and how do you commit suicide and throw a gun away afterwards?
Well, the other I have read various reports on the death of Willie McRae, and some of the witness statements concluded that he'd actually been shot in the back of the head.
Yeah.
And you can't kill yourself by shooting yourself in the back of the head.
No.
That is
best one to read is my comrade friend Ron Cully. Ron Cully is a colleague of mine at Eastwood Branch, and he has famously wrote Who Shot Willie McRae. It's a fascinating read.
I have read it, believe it or not. I
would invite everyone to have a wee read it.
It is a shocking tale as well.
It is.
A very shocking tale. I'm going to move things on a little bit. We have some breaking news. I suppose it's breaking news, and it is about our other favourite leader, Donald Trump, who this week has basically been found out again doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And in this case, this is a whistleblower, and the whistleblower, interestingly, comes from the American Secret Service. This is somebody inside the security services of the United States, has claimed that Mr. Trump telephoned Vladimir Zelensky, beg your pardon, the new Ukrainian leader, and during the conversation tried to persuade him, I think is the best way to put this, to persuade him to dig up dirt on his rival Joe Biden and his son.
Yeah.
Now, the tapes and all the rest of that of these conversations have disappeared, but a written transcript of the conversation has been found, despite the best efforts of various security service agents to get rid of it. And it does seem that he did do this, and he had this conversation. He's admitted that he had the conversation, and he even paraded Zelensky on the television today, who, I think when you and I were talking earlier on in the green room, when we were talking earlier on about this, Zelensky looked kind of scared when he was interviewed.
Oh yeah. It was definitely like a rabbit caught in the headlights, because he didn't want to offend Trump, but at the same token, he didn't want to lie.
The question really is, I mean, these are allegations at the moment, and no wrongdoing, as they say, has been proved.
Yeah, not as yet, but I find it bizarre that I don't find it bizarre, but I find it incredulous that anybody can think that they would be able to impeach Trump anytime soon. You know what I mean? Because in the last couple of years he's proven himself to be completely Teflon.
Apparently the video the video transcripts, the recordings of the conversation, presumably from the Oval Office, have been moved off the normal server or off the normal storage place for them, and have disappeared into some new storage area, electronic or otherwise, and so it's very difficult for anybody to actually corroborate this story.
Yeah.
But it seems to be enough for Nancy Pelosi to impeach. They have. I'm just hearing that although they've been moved, they haven't disappeared, but they have been moved.
They're somewhere not to be found.
Somewhere at the moment where we don't know. But anyway, the evidence was enough for Nancy Pelosi to roll the dice. Now, this is probably the biggest accusation that any political figure in the United States can make against the sitting president. Yeah. And it's so rarely done that for Pelosi to go with this whistleblower must have some very detailed information. And at the moment, obviously, his identity is having to be closely guarded because he's obviously going to be a target for, somebody's going to try and rubbish his story at the very least. In other news, as they say, moving back towards Europe, the news came out today that the former French President Jacques Chirac has died today at the age of 85. Now, President Chirac dominated French politics for decades and stirred national pride with his opposition to the US-led invasion of Iraq in 2003. He was known for other things as well, though, was he not, Chirac?
Well, it was. I often thought that Chirac was a bit like Alex Salmond. Do you know what I mean?
He was a bit of a nationalist.
No. He was a bit of a Marmite character.
They loved or hated him.
But I viewed his presidency as somewhat one of competenceness. Is that a correct word?
Incompetence? Or
No, competent.
He was competent.
Competent and...
competency.
Competency.
One of those.
And very measured in what he was doing, because it's a tough gig to be
is a very
president of
country.
France, because it's either it is more right and left.
Well, we can see from the yellow vests and also the black vest movements in France how quick the French are to take to the streets. Because they're a republic after all.
Yeah, correct. Which any president who can go through his tenure without rocking the boat too much. As I remember,
would say
that he's doing quite.
My personal memory of Chirac was him standing up to the European Union over a common agricultural policy, because he knew politically knew that France's farming industry was close to boiling point, and the farmers in France, as we know, are very militant. If they don't like something, they'll take 500 tractor loads of manure and dump it in front door.
On your front door. Yeah, correct. And we've seen it.
The French know how to protest. But he seemed to unite the farmers, and he basically played to their wishes. He knew that they were worried about the common agricultural policy. Won a lot of concessions from the EU, I remember, for them.
And and I personally predict that once we are completely independent and we are dealing with the EU, I don't think that Nicola will take any prisoners either in that respect.
No.
I fully foresee her playing a full role within the EU, and we have got many great. Well, I mean, what we stand to get, 12 MEPs?
12, yes. That would be what we have at the moment.
You've got to think of people of the likes of Joanna Cherry, possibly sitting in Brussels and stuff like that. You know that Joanna will just not sit in her hands.
Oh, certainly not. I mean, her stock has risen pretty high politically in recent days.
Immensely.
Despite the mainstream media's attempts to airbrush her out of her heroic role in actually preventing Boris from stopping Parliament.
Well, you know that it's always going to be, down in England, they're always going to concentrate on the Gina Miller thing,
yes.
You know what I mean? Because, Gina, English, all the rest of it, and Joanna, Scottish, pushed to the back. I noticed
Jo Swinson managed to slide herself into the pantheon of four remarkable women, including Greta Thunberg, when Jo Swinson really has done almost nothing.
She's an absolute narcissist, she really is.
I mean, her party is anti-Brexit, give her that, but so far she has achieved nothing, really,
I
politically.
Actually only believe that her party is anti-Brexit because they are trying to appear to be the polar opposite of the Tories, where in actual fact they really are yellow Tories. That is what they that's what they are. That's what they once were. That's what she wants to become.
The strategy appears to be working if the polls are to be believed, because the Lib Dems, I haven't got the actual percentages right here, but I read the other day that they had taken a lot of percentage points from both Labour and Tory parties, and they were sitting at something like, I can't remember, but it was a lot higher than they had been before they gained, I don't know, 16 or 17 percentage points. The SNP were up a bit.
Somebody
I think
has
they had
to offer
43 seats, I think they were projected to win.
43 seats. Well, I mean, somebody has to, somebody has to offer a clear alternative to the Labour and Tory at this moment in time down in England. Because the alternative is the Brexit Party. I mean, I don't know if you watched I caught a snippet of debate night last night, and there was a Brexit MEP.
Who was that?
Was he an MEP? No, he was a candidate.
A candidate for...
and I kid you not, the guy was as enigmatic as a cardboard cutout. It was horrendous. He actually said that he didn't want to stand.
Do you think he was just roped in to do it because they needed 600 candidates or something?
Correct.
So basically,
correct. Do you know? So they have to offer an alternative to the Brexit Party, and they might well, you're saying 47, 48 seats. I would probably.
I think it was actually more. I think it might have been 70, but I will check.
I would actually go with about 30, 35 or something.
They were actually polled higher than the SNP. The SNP were going 53 seats, and I'm pretty sure Swinson's party was up near 70 in the last poll I looked at of voting intentions.
That's
a very small sample, I believe.
Because it has to get pointed out to Swinson time and time again. The fact that, and Bercow does it very well, is the fact that we are the third largest party and you know, she seems to forget that.
Well, having talked about this a little bit, there are other items of news in the UK at the moment. One of which is that the Tories have had to admit that further arms sales have been made to Saudi Arabia, and it's a breach of an international embargo, I believe, on arms trading at this moment. Mm-hmm. But the UK government has had to admit that it's still going on. Mm-hmm. And to me, there were a lot of questions to be answered by the Saudis and Americans in the UK over why their missile defences failed so dismally to thwart that attack on their oil installation. That was a bizarre event.
It's this dark money that swirls around between you know.
It's almost as if
every government needs a war. I think it was famously said, for a government to be successful, the money generated from it, is said to help the flagging economy.
Well,
what you now look at that unfortunately is not in the running order is that the the coachmakers in Northern Ireland have now gone to the wall. That is 1,200 jobs lost.
Is this bus builders?
Bus builders, and then you look on...
and this is because they're not going to be able to export properly, and they're losing orders probably.
Because they can't plan. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then you look at the whole Thomas Cook incident and stuff like that,
well,
where you've got 9,000... Do you know what I mean?
Their holiday bookings were down dramatically after Brexit was announced.
Well, I mean that was down to two CEOs mismanaging the whole.
Well, they took millions of pounds out of the business when it was on its knees.
I indirectly worked for Thomas Cook when I was a dispatcher at Glasgow Airport and a check-in agent as well, and it was a wonderful. Well-oiled machine.
Yeah, a lot of people have said how wonderful Thomas Cook was.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were really friendly, and the people in Thomas Cook, the actual Thomas Cook employees, because I was working for a handling agent, but they were really sort of like anything that you were doing to make their job easier. They were so grateful.
But like so many great supposedly British companies like Thomas Cook, like Woolworths, all of these famous high street names, they didn't move with the times, unfortunately. They seem to think that they were sort of future-proofed because they were so big.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they shot themselves in the foot when they bought MyTravel, and they also took over all the co-op travel shops as well, and they were the only a travel retailer in Britain to actually have independent travel shops.
There may well still be a small market for an independent travel agent who, for some people, like to have their holidays arranged for them in that way.
Yes.
And many people don't like booking online because they worry about the security of it. Yeah. Well, listen, to bring this back to where we were with the Saudis. It's a digression, but things to do with exports, aviation, and weapons is what we were talking about. The Saudis made a bizarre claim, I think it was the day before yesterday, that the reason that their American Patriot missiles failed to shoot down or engage a single drone or cruise missile was because they were facing the wrong way. The story was that they had pointed them at where they thought the threat was going to come from, which was, I think, the south or the east to the Houthi rebels.
Yeah.
When actually it came from Iran instead, and this is the excuse. But Patriot missiles have a 360-degree radar.
Yeah.
It's nonsensical to come out with a story like that.
Well, I mean, it's also been well documented. The American Army or the American forces, are well versed in, technology.
But the trouble is that the Houthi rebels that they're fighting an unequal war, obviously, against a much, much larger, well-armed country. So they're having to resort to quite devious tactics, and what they used to call asymmetric warfare. And they've come up with the idea of using drones to plant explosives on these oil installations, and they've been incredibly successful.
Effective,
because a drone doesn't have a jet engine, and you can't track it because it's flying too low and it's too small. And they seem to have found a real chink in the armour. A Patriot missile can't shoot a drone down.
No.
They're like using a nuclear missile to defend Scotland against a nuclear attack. It's nonsense.
Well, I mean, I think someone famously said, you know, if you remember a couple of months ago there was drone attacks outside Heathrow. Someone said,
is this the one that they foiled the drone attack? Or supposedly foiled
allegedly. But someone made the suggestion that it should be easy enough just to shoot it. Do you know what I mean?
A gun and bang. A shotgun would take it out like a grouse.
It would decimate it.
You get a few Hoorie Henrys down there with the tweed suits, they could blast it out of the sky. Who needs a Patriot missile?
Now there's a job for our new Minister of Scotland, whatever his name is.
Well, we could get rid of the blood sports and have drone shooting.
Drone shooting.
A new sport has been created, Chris. Okay, well, let's move on. Staying with the sort of nuclear-ish theme. When I was talking about nuclear weapons, it's not a very good segue. But the SNP have condemned the Hinkley nuclear deal. £2.9 million, I think, is what is being spent at the moment. But is Hinkley going to go ahead? Or is it being cancelled?
It was out a thing yesterday, was it? Yesterday it's found that it's going to be at least 18 months behind schedule. It's going to be at least 900 million over budget at the current at today's
and this
prices.
Money, to be clear, this investment was coming from China, I understand.
China and the EDF, which is the French...
the French National Power Company.
And apparently they are going to soak up this excess, the Chinese conglomerate and EDF. But what was strikingly bizarre for me was that they said they had experienced some anomalies in the ground and it was severely testing their equipment.
So in other words, there's something in the rocks or the strata below the site that's giving them trouble?
Now, you know, surely that's what you pay surveyors for. If you're doing groundworks and stuff like that, you would need to, let the surveyor instructs the navies as to, where to go and how to cut.
Yeah, I've just been told that this £2.9 million is additional money that's having to be spent, presumably to remediate this problem with the ground.
With the actual groundworks.
Doesn't bode well for a nuclear powered generator, which has got to be it's obviously got to be very well founded on solid foundations. And when you get anomalies or voids and things like that in the rock strata below, it can severely weaken the structure.
But, you need to take this in the context of what it is, and then you add that to HS2. Then you add it to the other Tory projects that just seem to be burgeoning on and on and on.
They gobble up more and more money, and the place goes into more and more debt.
However, a Scottish Government can actually build a bridge and deliver it on time.
And are not planning to build any nuclear power stations. In fact, they've abandoned nuclear now, I understand, completely. No nuclear and no combustion at all, no coal, no oil, no gas. Eventually it will be phased out. And everything will be renewable.
That is basically what
hydrogen production
we are talking about, a just transition. It can't get done on an overnight basis.
No.
Because there are too many jobs that are invested in the fossil fuel industry.
Indeed, so it has to be phased slowly.
It has to be a phased transition over to the renewables, which at the moment, Scottish Government are at the cutting edge of
one possibility.
Renewable technology.
One possibility that was being mooted yesterday in Scotland was the idea of leaving the oil in the ground, as it were, in the North Sea, but pumping the gas out.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of just burning the gas as it is, which is basically methane or ethane, they remove the carbon from the gas in an industrial process, so it's pure hydrogen.
Yeah.
And take the other elements, which are mostly carbon dioxide, I understand, and pump that back down into the well. So really, instead of burning more hydrocarbon, you're simply burning hydrogen, which creates water vapour, which is harmless to the environment.
Yeah.
So it would be a tremendous technology if that can be done.
It has to be said that through the annals of time, the Scottish engineers and entrepreneurs have been at the cutting edge of technology, and yet it can't come quick enough for the Green Party. Well, Nicola made that point today, is the fact that we have set very ambitious targets, and yet nothing will still be good enough for the Greens, because they want everything like yesterday.
Of course they do, and it never happens fast enough. The Greens tend to abstain when there are votes
by the SNP as well,
simply because it's not enough. It doesn't go far enough. It doesn't go fast enough. But that brings us to this latest piece of news, which is that the Scottish National Investment Bank, set up by the SNP government, the bill has passed its first stage, and they're now talking about their ambitions for a green economy as a part of this.
Yeah.
This investment bank is going to feed into this new these new green industries that will be set up.
I actually think it's a radical proposition, and one that can definitely work. You look at the work that the Scottish Government have done in conjunction with the Nordic countries in order to study their successful models. And again, you have to reiterate the fact that these countries are smaller than Scotland. We can do it on a bigger and more grander scale in order to make that just transition that I was talking about all the more easier.
Somebody also has suggested to me today, actually, in a message on my internet connection, that we should take the oil money that we make, the revenues, and if you sort of aggregate them together, all the future revenues, put them in the investment bank and use all those revenues only to make this switch to entirely decarbonising the economy. That at least the money made from that dirtier technology could be used for the cleanup. What do you think?
Well, I mean, that as well, and someone also suggested to me, is that we could also use, because obviously when Scotland becomes independent, make no bones about it, we can't get rid of the weapons of mass destruction overnight from Faslane and Coolport, so it will take time. Now, somebody did suggest to me that we could charge the Westminster Government up to £900 million a year in rent. Now, that £900 million could also go into the investment bank as well.
Yeah, I understand. So this is to accommodate basically a ground rent, but in a loch.
Yeah. Again, harken back to my days as a dispatcher. Aircraft comes in and it has a turnaround, and it has to get back out. And if it doesn't get back out, it gets treated like any parking fine.
Yeah,
right? Glasgow Airport will charge Thomson's and Jet2 and Ryanair.
So you're thinking maybe that Faslane could become a profit-making
why not? Because we have to accept that it's not going to be an overnight.
On the other hand,
movement.
Chris, there is also the other benefit to this. I know people don't see much benefit in Faslane, but if it's denuclearised, for example, then the British Navy's conventional submarine fleet can still be refitted, resupplied, and services provided for
them.
And
they could still be charged handsomely for it.
But not only that, but they can also form part of Scotland's defences, if you like, those submarines. These hunter-killer submarines, which are there to defend you against other submarines from other countries. So these are things that people don't like to talk about when they're talking about denuclearising, but they might need to be done.
But an awful lot of people don't actually do the necessary homework that is required to do when you're talking about the loss of the weapons of mass destruction from Scotland actually will only affect up to 250 Scottish jobs, because that is only 250 people in Scotland who are independently employed to work at those sites. The rest of the people on those sites are, I hate to point out, but the British Army.
Yeah, they're guarding it, aren't they?
They are paying their tax down in England. Indeed. Do you know what I mean? They're not paying taxes in Scotland. So, if it was used as a conventional base, again, I think I made the point.
Are you talking about this as perhaps as an interim measure,
or not
a
even an interim,
one?
but looking at it in the actual longer view, is the fact that Scotland doesn't have any surface
fleet of its own.
Not yet, anyway. And the only fleet boats that actually come up from England,
mostly the subs,
are sporadically sent up in order just to do a quick skirt round the west coast, down the east coast, and then bugger off back to Scarborough. Do you know?
Because they missed that Russian destroyer that sat off Leith Docks.
Correct.
Somebody had to phone them up.
You could make an argument of the fact that Rosyth obviously would be best placed in order to make these surface boats that we would need in an independent Scotland to bolster any conventional defence mechanism.
Well, I guess
that
our assets are mostly sea-based. The ones that we really need to defend are our tidal turbines or offshore wind farms.
Correct.
And what remains of our oil and gas wells. Okay, well listen, Chris, I'd like to leave that subject behind for a minute. That's a very interesting subject. I'm fascinated by some of these ideas. We're moving back to a subject which has dogged Scotland, I think, for decades, and this is the subject of alcohol and the Scots' relationship with this drink.
Mm-hmm.
And there is evidence come out recently in surveys that Scots are buying less alcohol now since the minimum price tariff was introduced by the SNP government. Now, this is a sort of good and bad story at the same time, isn't it, really? Because in a way, your off licenses and shops which sell alcohol are perhaps not, you might think, not selling as much of it, but on the other hand, the stuff they are selling is now more expensive.
But
the harms caused by it are far less, and that I think is the payoff, isn't it?
That is a definite payoff. If you look back at the, you and I are of an age where we can remember.
You speak for yourself, Chris.
that there was independent off licences throughout Scotland,
My family actually was involved in the first off licences in Scotland very long time ago in the 50s.
Right, so you had all those independent retailers, who were getting the alcohol direct from the vintners. And they were selling it, basically as cheap as chips, and it was flying off the shelves. Now this, because of this, at one point in time, I think the Tories were trying to suggest that, with the introduction of the minimum pricing, people would start booze cruising down to Carlisle in order to
has there been any evidence
cider.
Of this? I don't
Absolutely
think so.
None at all, Gordon. You know that, and I know that.
But the kind of people who binge buy cheap alcohol tend to go down to the supermarket for it on foot.
Aye, because
or down to the off licence of an evening to get the cans in for the football match.
But I mean, if you're, not to put too fine a point in it, but if you've got an addiction to alcohol, you're hardly fit to hold a driving licence in order to drive down to Carlisle and buy your bevy and then drive back up again. It's a ludicrous proposition.
And somebody pointed out to me today, Chris, that it's not that alcohol's been made illegal. People can still buy it.
Correct, yeah.
But they just can't buy the strong alcohol cheaply. They have to pay for the alcohol per unit. That means no matter what the drink is, if it's a strong drink, they'll pay more for it.
It has to get pointed out, excuse me, Joe Fitzpatrick, MSP, who has been leading this, he's been at the forefront of this. He was quick to point out that this is I think the third report.
Yes.
Since it
started
its inception. At this moment in time, the reduction in sort of like alcoholic litres is only about half a pint per person.
Only half a pint?
Only half a pint per person.
When you take it over all of the statistics.
Head, yeah. So but at the same token, whilst that is, obviously to be lauded, that it's actually going down. The point that you made is that the higher priced strength of ciders and beers and stuff like that, they're actually staying on the shelf.
They can't, because they're now having to pay. They're now having to pay the fair price for.
But unfortunately, the people who depend on alcohol, because it has to be said, alcoholism is an actual addiction.
It is.
These people are just moving from one sort of like brand, to another. Yes. I think when we next discuss this, hopefully we are discussing about a drop in alcoholic-related deaths, alcoholic-related incidences.
That's what is apparently being seen in this study. I
think it's a bit too early in 3 reports to be talking about a reduction in deaths. But if you look at it in the round towards people being admitted to hospital, due to alcoholic poisoning.
Yes.
Then
it's now far more difficult to poison yourself unless you can afford to shell out for more of it.
Yeah.
Then it's much harder for you to kind of overdose on alcohol. But what's interesting is the researchers in Newcastle University are saying that there are places in the northeast of England where they really would like to introduce this. Now they've seen how it actually has worked and the effect it's had. And the health outcomes have improved, and the number of admissions for drink-related illnesses, accidents, and so on has dropped in a way that is greater than normal. Right, they can actually see it. Okay, so it is a good news story.
It definitely is, because again, it's shown that Scotland are leading the way where they can, with the powers that they have.
Yeah, they're actually using them.
Do you know what I mean?
Good.
And again, I think we could be talking about this in a better context if the Westminster government would devolve the powers of to allow us to attack the drug epidemic
in the same way, perhaps,
in the same way.
Yeah, with different strategies.
Because I think I told you the last time that
we spoke about this once before.
Lisbon, the way that they have radically attacked their drug issue head on.
Is this with a multi?
It's just been transformational.
Somebody said that actually decriminalising all drug use, removing the criminality, brought the problem into the medical sphere where it could be treated, where people aren't hidden, they weren't injecting in quiet, out of the way places with dirty needles and so on. Those people could be spared things like hepatitis, HIV, dying early, you know. And they could actually control their addiction, or maybe eventually come off the drugs completely. Just before we leave this subject, I just wanted to quote what the lead researcher from the University of Newcastle was saying about Scotland's unit pricing of alcohol. He's pointed out that the heaviest drinkers are more likely to buy their alcohol from stores rather than on trade in bars and restaurants. They're going to drink in private, out of sight. They're going to take it home because it's cheaper. And the lead report author Peter Anderson has said that these findings show that minimum unit price does what it was intended to do, what they said it would do. It reduces the amount of alcohol that people can buy, and it benefits the health of many people in Scotland, particularly those who drink the most and those with disadvantaged backgrounds. By denying them this poison, basically, it reduces the harm to them. And they're saying that they urge the rest of the UK to follow Scotland's lead. This will undoubtedly benefit many individuals and their families. So a very strong recommendation from the report's author there.
There are Labour MPs in the House of Commons who would want this adopted. Obviously, those constituencies in the north of England, which were,
again, abandoned during the decline of the 1980s, when the industrial heartlands of the northeast were laid desolate by Conservative policies at the time. Closing the mines and the steelworks and so forth.
Not only that as well, but if you look at the pittance that the Tory government are actually paying in benefits, again, the knock-on effect would be that the poor people who are on benefits would not be able to make the choice to buy the high-priced alcohol because they just can't afford it.
Well, talking about money leads me into our penultimate story this evening, and that is a comment from the Scottish Government on its consolidated accounts. Now, these are the financial figures which the Scottish Government has had for the past year, from 2018 to 19, and the Auditor General's report, the Finance Secretary Derek Mackay has said, for the 14th consecutive year, the Scottish Government's accounts were given a clean bill of health by Audit Scotland, who highlighted that the budget management was effective in managing the total spending within the limit set. Now, this is very important. I think people don't really understand that Scotland runs on a fixed budget. It's a bit like a household budget. We can't overspend.
No.
Unlike south of the border, where they can overspend and borrow, we cannot do this. Derek Mackay has gone on to say, we continue to operate in a very challenging financial climate as Brexit and the increased risk of a no-deal scenario remains the biggest threat to our economy and public finances, as well as we take steps to try and mitigate the impact of the outcome. Under the current devolution settlement, the Scottish Government is not permitted to overspend its budget, and as a consequence, we've consistently adopted a position of controlling expenditure to live within the budget caps that apply. What would happen, Chris, do you think, if these caps were removed? If we had the full powers of independence, how would it change things, do you think, for Scotland's budget and its ability to provide the services that we want?
Obviously, it would. I think it would have a profound effect on the citizens of Scotland if they would only be brave enough to put a bit of faith into your country to be able to stand up on the world stage and make decisions for itself. That's. I can't put it any plainer than that, Gordon.
Fair enough.
I don't think I'm preaching to the converted when I say that. But it was pointed out today in FMQs. One Tory MSP had the affront to turn around to Nicola Sturgeon and say that the Westminster government gave you £96 million extra in the Barnett consequentials for councils to dole out
to mitigate the effects
of the effects of Brexit. And where is this money? Why do they have to apply through reams of red tape in order to get this money. And again, Nicola wonderfully owned the MSP by just saying, why should we mitigate against something that we didn't vote for?
Indeed, yeah.
And these councils have actually, Nicola pointed out that 92 million of that 96 has already been allocated to all the various councils, and the residual money that is left is up for individual councils to make a business case for that money.
Needed it. Yeah, so
if they needed it. So it's not like we're hoarding it somewhere down the back of the sofa.
It seems bizarre that a Conservative MSP would not know that in advance of asking his question. Was he really so ignorant he didn't understand how the money
I have to point out as well, he was not alone, because I think it was Luke Graham, MP, actually brought it up yesterday in the House of Commons to Michael Gove that we weren't using the correct allocation. We had no chance for recourse. As you know, Michael Gove doesn't take any interventions from Scottish MPs when he's in full flow. That leads me nicely into possibly talking about Michael Gove and his woeful language. Again,
are you referring to his sectarian comment?
What we spoke about earlier on about the woeful language, and this guy is coming out accusing the SNP of being sectarian. Where it's actually come out in a book by an Irish author. An Irish journalist has found that Michael Gove is actually a secret Orangeman.
Indeed, how has that been found out?
He was actually he was invited to Michael Gove's penthouse flat in London, and apparently there was a room festooned with white horses and red hands of Ulster flags.
Good heavens!
And he apparently he can sing the sash off by heart.
So he is affiliated in some way to the Northern Irish.
It might surprise. It might also surprise the viewers as well that there is actually an Orange Order lodge in the Westminster Parliament.
Yeah, I think that's been known about for a while, but it does still surprise people.
Yeah, it's a nasty one. And again, talking about the language and the rhetoric that that Boris Johnson and his government are using, is incendiary language.
It's being used deliberately to press the buttons.
Of course it is, because if you mention Scottish and sectarian, it's going to invoke, obviously,
it's a big red flag, isn't it, to many
the whole
people.
Rangers Celtic thing and all the rest of it, Catholics against Protestants, and whatnot, what have you, and it is going to lead, I hate to say it, but it will lead to civil unrest.
If we react to it, and that's the big thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But only if people react the way that the remarks are intended to make them.
For the MP to turn round, for the Prime Minister to turn round to an MP and say that it was, what was it he said, complete tosh?
Yeah.
To bring up the memory of Joe Cox and stuff like that. It's absolutely horrendous for a Prime Minister to say that.
We've witnessed a lot of bad things this week, Chris, coming out of the mouths of politicians.
I think it's only going to get worse, Gordon. I really honestly do.
Just before we wind up this evening, because we are running over
I do apologise, but I had to have my rant. I had to get my rant.
Your rant is duly noted. The final story this evening is about the green economic ambitions of the Scottish Government and the Scottish Parliament, and a bill to support the set-up of the National Investment Bank, and to help put green investment at its heart. As I said earlier on, it's past stage one, following a debate in the Scottish Parliament. And the bank's primary mission was to secure the transition to a net zero economy.
Yeah.
So it's a good news story. And finally, to just cram in the last ever story that we've got, is that Scotland is open and pro-European in the face of Brexit. This being said, I believe this is at a conference. Is it an event in Europe?
Yeah, recently? And again, it shows. If you remember, I think it was last year or a couple of years ago that the Tories and Labour were questioning why Scotland was wanting to open so many consulates.
And obviously,
now we know because the fruits of that labour is now, coming home to roost.
It's basically forward planning then.
It is basically forward planning. It's about projecting Scotland, their wish to remain European and obviously to be internationalists. And this is now coming to the fore, where you have the First Minister going over to Berlin and receiving an award.
Yes, there's been some very obvious.
Do you know what I mean?
I think you would call it sort of pre-independence diplomacy almost.
Yeah.
Chris, I'm sorry to have to stop us there this evening. We have completely run out of time.
As we usually do.
Again, thank you very much, Chris, for your insights tonight. We are, as I say, out of time. So as usual, we actually need your help to keep making programmes at Broadcasting Scotland, and so we would greatly appreciate it if you enjoy the output of Scotland at 7 and our other programmes, that you become a supporter of Broadcasting Scotland. The details are on your screen now of how to do that. Your £5 a month will ensure that we can continue to make programmes into the future, and the more people who sign up as subscribers, the more programmes we'll be able to make. That's it from us tonight, with a slightly overrunning show, but thanks to my guest Chris McCusker tonight, and I'll be back again on Monday with another edition of Scotland at 7. Be sure, incidentally, to tune in on Sunday to the Full Scottish, our other programme, our magazine programme on Sunday. That's it from us tonight. Very good night to you.